2020, I read 107 books. Let's talk about my 10 favorites. Hello lovely book dragons, and welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking, like I said, about my favorite books of the year 2020. Before we start though, I would like to point out that I got a new camera. I got a camera with a lens and I'm trying to figure everything out. So if stuff doesn't work well yet, please bear with me. I'm trying my best to figure out the settings and everything. I hope this works. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We're not here to talk about cameras and lenses. We're here to talk about books. 2020 was the year where I finally reached my goal of reading 100 books. I actually read more than 100. I think it was 107 books, and that's a lot of books. Fortunately, I also had a great reading year quality-wise as quantity-wise, because I met some all-time new favorite series, all-time new favorite authors. I met you guys. This has been it was a crap year in so many ways, but in so many ways it was a great year. And so today I decided I was going to bring you my top 10 of the year. They are ranked. Yes, I took the time to rank these and it was so hard. So pretty much when I was establishing this list of favorite books, I had two rules. I didn't want to include rereads on my favorites, and I didn't want to include more than one book per series. If I read multiple series by the same author, it counts. I can add different books from his different series or her different series, but not the same books in the same series. That's pretty much the rules for this list. So without further ado, I want to start with some honorable mentions and then go right into the top 10. Honorable mention number 1 is going to be The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. This book has a double reason for being on this list, and that is because number 1, I really enjoyed the book. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. This is a sci-fi murder mystery book where we follow a man, Aidan Bishop, who wakes up at this mansion, and then a woman, Evelyn Hardcastle, has been killed. And he wakes up for 7 days in the body of a different person to piece together the puzzle of who murdered Evelyn Hardcastle. And I really loved following this guy piecing the pieces of the puzzle together, and it was just so fun. And I really felt like, okay, there's this. It's like a perfect book to read with someone and to buddy read, because you can just talk about, well, what about this? It was so fun. And this book also is what brought me, 1, back to this channel, and 2, that brought Natasha, Philippa, Manganet and I together, because that was our very first buddy read. And so I owe this book also a lot on the friendship side of things and on the booktube side of things. So if the premise of this book sounds at all interesting to you, go ahead and check it out, because I thought it was really fun. Honorable mention number 2 is Stranger Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I really enjoyed this book. I still always enjoy Laini Taylor's writing and her stories, but Laini Taylor's writing is a little bit too lyrical for me. I prefer a more simple writing style that's still very beautiful, but not as purple prosy. For example, Jo Abercrombie has beautiful prose, but it's not as purple as this. But I still really enjoyed my time with Stranger Dreamer. In this book, we basically follow Laszlo Strange, who always has dreamt of this place called Weep, and he doesn't remember the name of the place, and he starts figuring things out about the place, but everyone's like, you're delusional. Until one day, people come out from the city of Weep, and they're like, hey, we're looking for people to come with us to solve some stuff. And so he goes on this expedition, and it's really fun, and it's definitely a series that I plan on finishing, because there's only 2 books out, so might as well just do that. Honorable mention number 3 is House of Dragons by Jessica Cluess. This is a young adult fantasy novel about 5 people who compete in a competition to become the new emperor. I think it's emperor. And this is about dragons. Like, each of these people have their dragon, and the dragons are like almost characters themselves. They're all very different. The way they train their dragons, the way they approach the dragons are very different in all of these kingdoms. And the little twist is that the characters who are chosen to go and compete in this competition are not the ones that are supposed to go, because the ones that are supposed to go are the firstborns of each kingdom. But that's not what happens in this book. And at the beginning I thought, okay, well, that's kind of like, okay. But what I loved is that this YA book went places. We were able to delve into characters and look at their grief. There was analysis of like abandonment, of so many things. And for a YA book, it really made me feel a lot. And It went places where I don't expect YA books to go, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to read its sequel. And the final honorable mention is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett. This was also a buddy read. I think almost all of these have been buddy reads so far, and this one was simply a ton of fun. I loved this story so much, but I'm waiting for the third book to come out to reread it and then read its sequel, because this magic system is called scriving. So pretty much you have an object and it has a code that tells this object what to do. And what you can do, or like what the people in this world can do, is they can go and change the code of this object, and then the object behaves like what the people are coding it to do. So it's sometimes it was a bit like, okay, okay. And so like you see our main character sometimes ask the object, so you are supposed to only open if this key is the right key, right? Yes. So what if I tell you it's the right key? Like, it's things like that, and it's so interesting, but it's also so fun. It's incredibly fun and fast-paced. I read the last half of this book in one go because I couldn't put it down. It was incredible. And now onto my actual top 10 books of 2020. Are you ready? At number 10, I'm going to be talking about The Binding by Bridget Collins. This book and I really had the right book, right time, and we matched, and it was perfect. I have recommended this book to some other friends, and it didn't impact them as much as it impacted me. So I really think this was a thing of me reading it at the right time in my life. For this book, I really recommend not reading the synopsis. I'm going to tell you just like the basic premise you need to know, because I feel like the synopsis spoils something very big. And so pretty much we're in a world where books are seen as bad. They're seen as disgusting, and we don't really know why yet. But our main character, he is asked to become an apprentice to a bookbinder, and everyone looks down on him because like, ew, bookbinder, that's like the worst profession on earth. And that's all you need to know going into this story. And this story is so atmospheric, it is so beautiful, it really took my heart and squeezed it, and it was amazing. It's a standalone novel, and I think we don't have enough of those in the fantasy genre. Like I said, there is a fantasy element, but it doesn't read like fantasies, you know? It reads more like a literary fiction, and then with fantasy elements in it. I love this book so incredibly much. It is one of the most beautiful books I've read. It is one of the books that has impacted me the most. Every time I look at the book on my shelves, I get this warm feeling, but also a little bit heartbroken. Oh, it was incredibly beautiful, and I highly, highly recommend this book. Number 9 is The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was finally the year in which I read Lord of the Rings. This has been on my reader's bucket list forever, and this year I buddy read The Hobbit and the whole trilogy, really like the Lord of the Rings, but the 3 parts of Lord of the Rings with Elise, and it was so fun because she's a huge fan and I was a newbie to the books, and it was so fun to read them with someone who knows the book so well and who knows the story so well. I don't need to tell you the story behind Lord of the Rings, I'm sure, but I highly recommend the audiobooks for these. I listened to the narration by, I don't remember who the narrator was, but I'll put it up here, and I loved these audiobooks. He sings all the songs, he does all the different voices. It is an incredible experience, and I will re-listen to these in the future, because not only are these books so comforting and so amazing, but the narration just makes them so much better. So why did I pick The Two Towers? I really liked all of the 3 books, but I think that The Two Towers is really the one that solidifies it for me, that makes this from a really good series to a favorite series. I just love the characters. I love the exploration of all of the characters. I love discovering the world. I love the battles in this book. This book is really just what made it really go one level above. And of course, I also loved Return of the King, but I had to give it to The Two Towers because it is the book in the series that elevates the whole series for me to a favorite. Number 8 on this list is completely different from any other book that will be on this list, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I read this one in December, which is why I always wait to film these videos in January, because you could still find your favorite in December. Here's proof. I buddy read The House in the Cerulean Sea with Brittany over at Pondering Books on Instagram, and it was such an incredible book. This book, every time I watch a video of someone talking about this book, they say it's like a warm hug. And it is. It's exactly what it is. Imagine the feeling of you just went on a cold walk and you come home and you have like the warmth of your house, but your cheeks are still like kind of cold, and you're starting to drink a warm beverage and it warms you slowly inside until you're super cozy. That's this book. This book is so so incredible. Something else I've always heard is that this book is kind of like a middle grade but for adults, and I agree. So the plot of this book is that we follow Linus Baker, and he is a caretaker for magical children. He works for the department in charge of magical children, and he goes to these orphanages and he makes sure that everything goes well, that the kids are in a good home, like in this orphanage, but that it's basically like a home for them, that they are in good care. And one day he gets sent on this mission, this super high level mission, and he goes to the worst orphanage ever because it is rumored that the Antichrist is there. And all of the children in that orphanage are like the most dangerous children ever. And they're all in one place, and he has to go and make sure that the caretaker that they have and that the place that they're in is good for the children, or he has to shut down the orphanage. And this book is just so sweet. Like, you see all these children, and like you see how they think that they are something because adults tell them that. And that is so incredible. Like, the power that words have. That's for me something that I took away from this book. The themes are so beautiful, and some of it like just makes you cry because it's so beautiful. And oh, I love this book so much. At number 7 we have The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. Wow, this book was incredible. I read it at a wrong time. Unlike The Binding, this was really the wrong time. I read this when we first got into lockdown, when the virus of 2020 kind of became a thing, and so I was really anxious when I was reading this, and so I didn't connect with the book as much as I could have if I had read it in a different state of mind. But I still loved this book. This book is the sequel to The Poppy War. In The Poppy War, we follow our main character, Rin, who is a poor orphan who lives with her aunt and uncle, and they want to marry her off into an arranged marriage so that she can go do that. She does not want to do that, and she wants to enter into one of the military schools. But to enter these military schools, you have to pass a test called the Keiju, and it's super hard to pass. And so she does everything in her power to pass this test and to go into one of those military academies. She goes to the highest academy in the land, and as she's training for battle and training about combat and learning about combat, learning about strategies, a war erupts, and everyone at the academy learns that, yeah, learning about war and technicalities is completely different than being thrown into war. And so in the Dragon Republic, we blow the world wide open. There's so much that happens. It was such an incredible sequel. It is better than the Poppy War in so many ways. And the characters are just like, you hate all of them, except maybe for Kitai, because Kitai is so precious. But the characters are like, you can't like them, but you're still rooting for them. But then you're like, but you're all just horrible people. And the things that happen in these books, they're full of trigger warnings. Like, it's like the most brutal stuff ever, but the books are so good, and just the action in it, wow. At number 6 we have A Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This book, guys, this book should never have worked for me. I am a character-driven person, and I don't really like that much when it's only action in a book. I like having action, of course, but when it's only action, I get kind of bored. I don't like it. It's just not the pacing of a book that I like. I prefer more calm, and then at the end we get it like Sanderland. That's why we love Brandon Sanderson, because we build up, and at the end it's like bam, there you go. Rage of Dragons is not that. Rage of Dragons is pretty much action, and I loved it. I read the book in 2 days. It's not a small book. I read it in 2 days because I couldn't put it down. The plot of the story is that we follow our main character Tao, who lives in this world with a lot of war. And there's also this magic system that 1 in every 1,000 women can call down dragons, and 1 in every 100 men can become this huge fighting machine. Pretty much, like, it's really fun to see the magic system. But he doesn't care about that. What he wants is he wants to get married, he wants to have children, and basically live on a farm. That's all he wants. Something happens that kind of changes the course of his life, and he then has to go into the war, and he is fueled by revenge. This man is fueled by revenge. Like, you know those characters were like, but you could be doing this, you could be doing something for the greater good. No, this is my revenge, and they do that. That is Tao. And a lot of people find him insufferable. I didn't think so. I didn't love Tao, but I also wasn't bothered by him at all. And this book was so action-packed, and I loved it. I loved the military fantasy in this, like the way the skirmishes were explained, everything I just loved. This book was incredible, and I cannot wait to read its sequel. I haven't done that yet, but it's here. I'm gonna read it. Wow. Please, if you haven't read The Rage of Dragons, do it. There's 2 books out now. It's going to be 4 books if I'm not mistaken. So do yourself a favor, go pick it up. On to the top 5. So at number 5, we have Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. Oh man. In 2020, I read the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy in the realm of the Elderlings. I read Assassin's Apprentice and I thought it was a good book, but it wasn't anything super incredible. Like, enjoyable enough to continue on. And then I read Royal Assassin and wow. I loved that book. I love that book so much. And just like with The Lord of the Rings, I picked Royal Assassin because this is the book that to me made Robin Hobb an all-time favorite author forever. I will read everything she has ever written. I will read everything she recommends. I will read everything she ever writes. I love her. She is not afraid to hurt our main characters, not at all. Like the poor Fitz. I felt so bad for him the whole time. And this book was so incredibly fun and also heartbreaking, and oh, I loved it. Assassin's Quest I also loved, absolutely 5 stars, but it was a little bit slower at times. We had a lot of travel time, which makes the book a bit slower, and that's why I loved Royal Assassin so much, and I cannot wait to continue reading her other series in 2021. The plot of Assassin's Apprentice is that we follow Fitz as he's I think 5 or 6 years old, and his maternal grandparents have had it. He is a bastard, and they're like, okay, we are poor and we are raising this child that's kind of making us even poorer, and he is the bastard of the prince. So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna drop him at the castle and they can take care of him. And pretty much that's what happens. And then of course the politics of the fact that the prince has a bastard and all of those things. And guys, just go read Robin Hobb. She's my favorite. She is one of my favorite authors now. So we're on to the number 4 spot on this list, and that is going to be Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This book I put off for a very long time, and I don't know why, because I love Brandon Sanderson. I knew he couldn't do me wrong, but I was like, oh, a standalone, is this gonna be enough to develop the characters, develop the world, develop the magic system? I didn't know, and I don't know why I doubted him, because this book was incredible. We follow pretty much 2 sisters, Ciri and Vivenna. And Vivenna has been trained her whole life to marry the God King. And when the time comes that she is supposed to go and marry him and bear him his children, her father thinks, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. I love my daughter way too much. I don't want to send her. So he sends Ciri, who's not at all prepared, who has lived her life doing whatever the heck she wanted, because no one cared about her. She was like the 4th in line of something, and so she just is the free spirit, you know? And yeah, she gets thrown into this politics, and she has to marry this God King. She knows nothing. She doesn't know any history. She doesn't know anything, and it's just incredibly fun, but also heartbreaking. And the magic system here is that everything's based on colors, and everyone has 1 breath, but you can collect breaths from other people, and the more breaths you have, the more vividly you see things, the more you can use magic. It's a little bit more complicated of a magic system for me to explain, but you have to read it and it makes sense, of course. And I love this book so much because I thought that Brandon Sanderson in 1 book was able to establish incredible characters that I love. He was able to break my heart, and he was able to create a world that I was so interested in. I thought that this world and the politics of this world was so interesting, so incredibly fascinating, that I just loved it. Okay, we are on to my top 3. And okay, this was really hard. This was so hard because okay. Number 3 is The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I picked this book because honestly I read all of the books back to back to back, that they all kind of meshed together, and I don't remember where 1 book starts and 1 book stops. Plus, these books are not like plot driven, so the plot really only starts in book 2. So pretty much it's like a big book split into 3 parts. And so I picked The Blade Itself because it is what started my obsession with Joe Abercrombie. So like I said, there's not really a plot in these books, like there is, but only in book 2. But pretty much we follow a cast of characters that some of them are just, like there's a torturer, there's a man who kills a lot of people. Like they're not good people, and yet you love them because Joe Abercrombie is just a master at what he does. He writes incredible characters, and you just read for the characters. And then when the plot comes along, you're like, hey, a plot, great, I'm along for the ride. But I love the Blade itself so much. I love the First Law universe. I love Glokta and Nine Fingers and Pharaoh. I love all these characters so much, even though they're not the best characters, but they are the best characters. Like, I love them. And I've read now the First Law trilogy, and I've read the first standalone, which is Best Served Cold. And in 2021, I'm continuing with Joe Abercrombie because he has made himself be on my top 3. Just, he is incredible. Go read Joe Abercrombie. Pretty much my top 3 is, I'm not the one who coined this term. This was in Andrew's comments. Someone coined it. I don't know who did, but it's Sandercrombie. So my top 3 is Sandercrombie because the next book on this list, my number 2 book of the year, is Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. I know, I said that this was my number 1, but then it was a little bit of recency bias. I re-looked at everything I read and I thought Rhythm of War belongs in the number 2 spot. Rhythm of War is the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive, which is one of Brandon Sanderson's series in the Cosmere, and it is one of the biggest series in the Cosmere from page count and everything. This is epic. And Rhythm of War had me sobbing. I loved this book so much. I loved the direction it took the world in. I love how it blew the Cosmere wide open because all of his worlds are kind of interconnected, but you never really saw all the connections, and now you're starting to see them, and it is incredible. There are parts of this book that are slow. The middle part of this book is really kind of slow. It's also very scientific, and I don't have a scientific mind. For people with a scientific mind, this is incredible. This is fun. I love this book so much. It had me sobbing. I am so excited for book 5. Wow. My number 1 book of the year. My number 1 book of the year is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. This year, 2020, was finally the year in which I finished the Mistborn Era 1 series. I read The Final Empire 3 times before finishing it, because The Final Empire kind of reads as a standalone. You could finish there and never continue on if you didn't want to. And I had done that before. I read The Final Empire and then, but the other books are so long, and I wasn't yet a fan of Sanderson. Then I reread The Final Empire with all intention of continuing on, and I didn't. And then this year, I broke my leg, and I had nothing better to do than to binge them back to back to back, read all 3 books. And why did I pick The Hero of Ages? Because the ending is heartbreaking. It is also the only series finale we have by Brandon Sanderson, and I loved it. I loved getting to the end of that book and seeing how he has masterfully crafted the whole series, and there are things in book 1 that get revealed in book 3, and how everything comes together. It's masterful. It's masterful. By the time I was reading Hero of Ages, I was so attached to these characters. I love them so incredibly much, and everything hurts. Everything was painful to see. The reveals were incredible, like mind-blowing, and I loved it. I loved it. I love The Hero of Ages. So there you go, guys. That is my top 10 books of 2020. I hope you guys liked this video. Let me know down below, what are your top 3 books of last year? And yeah, I had a wonderful reading year in 2020. I hope to repeat that in 2021. So far, I'm off to a very good start. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye!